Welcome everyone to today's webinar presented by Dennis C. Miller of Dennis C. Miller, Revitalizing Your Nonprofit Board. Today we're going to be talking about collaborators and what is the best strategic decision for your organization. And what I'm going to do is just to first give us a few moments of a bio, but I wanted to let you know that as a result of recording this, we are going to be able to send you a copy of the recording as well as the slides. And if you have any questions throughout, everybody is muted except for Dennis and I, so that we can actually go ahead and monitor the quality of the recording. And what we'll do is I will take your questions in the chat box, so go ahead and type them into the chat box, and then we'll get to your questions at the end. And we do thank you very much for submitting questions in advance, because Dennis will be able to address a good majority of those questions as we conclude the webinar. So what I'm going to do now is just have Dennis tell us a little bit about himself, and go ahead, take it away, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Welcome everyone to my webinar today. I've been in the nonprofit sector for over 35 years as a president, CEO, and chair. I work with a lot with organizations around the country and nationwide in strategically aligning their stakeholders to achieve their vision as a board and CEO leadership development coach, retreat facilitator, strategic planning, workshops, and educator. Welcome, everybody. The idea of a merger or collaboration or these strategic decisions are facing all of our sector today. Oftentimes, though, the terms are misused or not fully understood, and they kind of gram up together here. What are some of the reasons that we're obviously having these discussions here? Well, certainly there's a potential financial crisis or belief a crisis for your organization may be nearing. Could be the departure of an executive director, a proactive move to reduce competition, a result of a growth strategy resulting from your strategic plan, a struggle to recruit or retain staff or board talent, perhaps a suggestion from a funder who is interested in consolidation in the field, or a request to merge from another organization are the more common scenarios of kind of how we got here. Today we're going to talk about those strategic decisions and focus really on two major ones, collaborations and mergers, though we will touch upon the other three. The key questions for everyone on this call, as well as your colleagues, your board, and your executive team, when any of these choices come up here, is two questions. I think if you listen and address these two questions, you always come pretty much to the right answer. Will your decision lead to improved sustainability? And will your decision lead to improved value to your community? We'll also be addressing your questions and any additional questions that come through. At this point, let's turn to the definition of collaboration. A form of collaboration is a much deeper cooperative approach for two or more organizations to work together. It requires a collective determination to reach an identical objective by sharing knowledge and building organizational consensus. It does require competent, secure leadership from both sides. Let's give an example, the first example of a collaboration. Jefferson Community Outreach wants to develop a new program to address health literacy for the thousands of low-income and immigrant population it serves, yet does not have a healthcare staff. They reach out to Hudson Health System to provide the health educators, nurses, and physicians to provide the workshops. Both organizations form a collaborative effort to enhance their mission by forming this collaboration. Next example. Amboy Hispanic Association provides a wide range of educational programs for children, both preschool and after school, but does not have the physical space to accommodate the demand for after-school programs for the local parents. The Amboy YMCA has a similar program but has additional available space to grow its program. Both executive directors meet and agree to provide a program to serve the community. Those are two examples of a collaboration. Let's move on to the issue of alliances. A A strategic alliance is an agreement between two or more parties to pursue a set of agreed-upon objectives while remaining independent organizations. As an example would be 50 affordable housing nonprofits in a state form the Affordable Housing Alliance to collectively pursue legislation and actions to enhance their chance of additional funding and bringing the issue of the need for more affordable housing to the public discussion. In this case, though, in forming this alliance, a new corporation called the Affordable Housing Alliance is formed, which is different than a collaboration where there's not a new entity formed. Let's move to an affiliation. Affiliation sounds similar to the others, but it's a formal act of connecting or associating with another person or organization, and there are two examples. A statewide organization of family service affiliates affiliates with the state community colleges to provide professional development, educational training to its members, which it could not do by itself. So the statewide organization affiliates with the state college to provide such a program. They remain as independent entities, but there's an affiliation agreement. Example 2 is a large mental health services organization affiliates with the university-based Behavioral Health Care Research Institute to ensure that quality medical outcomes are developed and implemented. Again, there's not a new organization, but the Mental Health Association becomes an affiliate of the large university medical center. Let's move on of merger. Now, for lawyers, merger has a very precise meaning. We're going to talk today about a range of options under a merger, but to a lawyer, a merger is quite simply is one corporation literally subsumed by another. It ceased to exist as a legal entity, and its governing board no longer exists. Any assets or liabilities become assets and liabilities of the new or surviving corporation in the transaction. In order to more clearly refer to this precise meaning, many times you'll hear the term statutory merger or full asset merger to refer to this type of transaction. The term merger has precise meaning. Let's turn to an example of a merger. Washington Family Services is a $10 million community service organization. Merges with Adams Children and Families Organization, a $25 million counseling and housing organization. The new corporation, the Adams Children and Family Services, has a budget now of $35 million, and the board and senior management team are integrated into a larger organization. Washington Family Services no longer exists as a legal entity. However, many use the term merger to describe a much broader range of transaction structures and any corporate transaction in which two or more corporations come together to consolidate all of their activities. Let's now turn to an example of a common parent model. A common parent model is when two or more participating entities create a third nonprofit corporation, and that corporation becomes the parent. This enables both organizations to keep their identity, their boards. This participating organizations can continue their separate legal existence, and their governing boards continue to function. Neither entity becomes responsible for the debts of the others. The common parent may be given broad or limited authority, which can change over time. In many cases, the common parent is given little authority beginning to do nothing more than infrastructure development, finance, HR, things like that. Over time, it can be given much more responsibility and can almost become the parent or the board itself of the new entity. In addition to preserving the existence of current entities, though, the common parent model also offers the advantage of flexibility. Let's turn to an example of the common parent model. Scranton Mental Health Services provides comprehensive children's and adolescent and adult counseling services. Harrisburg Health and Housing Services offers educational and housing service to those with mental health issues. The boards of both organizations agreed to form a common parent model merger, with the newly formed Penn Mental Health Services Corporation. Both organizations, Scranton Mental Health and Harrisburg Health and Housing Services, keep their respective names, their respective boards, and their respective leadership team. The new parent will oversee infrastructure sharing to include information technology, human resources, and financial operations. They hope to further collaborate on program development as both organizations kind of get to know each other better. Give another example. Let's move on to another example of a common parent model. The Hudson, Westchester, and Rockland Counties YMCAs, each separate entities with their own boards and leadership team, formed the Northern New York Y to become their parent company. Each Y remains its identity in the community, but the parent company will oversee all aspects of infrastructure development as well. Northern New Jersey Y, the parent, will need approval from all three independent Ys to increase its level of authority. Let's move on and talk about some of the common benefits of a collaboration or a merger. One, obviously, is the stronger pursuit of your mission. Sustainability is very difficult these days, and potentially a collaboration or a merger or a common parent helps build your mission stronger. Another potential benefit is delivering services more effectively. A third benefit would be program expansion and enhancement. An example might be as the following here. County A has a counseling organization for children, adolescents, and adults, but the neighboring mental health organization does a great job with housing and other educational programs. By forming either a collaboration, a full asset merger, or a common parent merger, both communities are able to benefit by an increased level of services. The fourth benefit is potential for building organizational capacity. One of the challenges that many of you know is that how do we maintain and build our capacity with the funding changes in the nonprofit sector, particularly with the decrease in public funding from government and state agencies. A potential benefit is improved financial sustainability. Another benefit is greater community value. Will we provide a greater value to those communities we serve? In addition, the benefit could be a policyholder or a funder is looking to increase their support or maintain their current supporting, but they want to have a combined operation. From my experience, funders are very interested in seeing collaboration or mergers. The question I am often asked is, why do we have 6 programs in our state or in our county for children? Why can't we just have one collaborative approach? I've heard this every day from different funders here. Another benefit, potential benefit, is a much stronger board. Boards can, as everybody knows, can be very difficult to be involved in a merger. But oftentimes, as boards get to know each other, meeting and discussing in small groups, having candid conversations about themselves, they may also merge, become better positioned to attract new board members. So a potential benefit of a collaboration, a merger, or a common parent model is obviously a much stronger board. What are some of the obstacles, though, that come with all this? The word merger just generates a tremendous amount of fear of people. Fear of losing a job, fear of losing their identity, fear of losing control. Another big obstacle, particularly with the word merger or collaboration, is the lack of executive financial security. In the for-profit world, CEOs are rewarded for merging and bringing their stock price up to a greater level. There's often tremendous golden parachutes, financial protection to support them in that process. In the nonprofit sector, there's very little of that. So there's always a fear obviously then I may be trying to do better for my community, but I certainly hurt myself and my family, and that's a major obstacle to this. Another obstacle is just a lack of communication. Organizations that consider collaborating or merging do a really poor job of communicating to their stakeholders what the different issues may be going on. Another common obstacle is a failure to address the very different cultural issues that exist in one organization to another. Some could be around for many more years, some could be a different point in their life cycle, just whole different personalities of their board, or a lot of issues, and people oftentimes fail to address the different cultural and sensitivity issues that each organization represents. Another very big issue, oftentimes as an obstacle, is the underestimating the cost and the timelines in the process. One of the myths, which we'll talk about in a second here, is that people think there would automatically be cost savings or reduced administrative costs if there was a merger. Over time, that may be the case, but in many cases, it is not. Most nonprofit organizations have underdeveloped infrastructures. They actually have little and lean administrative staffs. When you combine two organizations, sometimes where previously there may not have been a deputy director, there may need to be a new position created. In many cases, that organizations have had 50 employees or more combined and now have 200 employees, they find they need a director of human resources, which they didn't have before. So administrative cost savings are an obstacle because people assume automatically there will be. And to understand it takes sometimes a year, even 2 years, to work through all the issues here. Another major common obstacle is just the unrealistic expectations. We go into these things thinking that this is a quick fix. We oftentimes go into these merger discussions and don't realize, for example, that there's the opportunity costs that are associated with this process. Meaning by that, the attention and time of senior management team and board members is very scarce. It's a very precious resource. Board members and executives must carefully balance their time in any one of these negotiations with their regular responsibilities of mitigating the opportunity costs that may arise from this prolonged or failed negotiating process. Another issue that comes up, obviously, is that there may be a whole host of post-merger or post-collaboration issues that come up here, including different integration systems, financial systems, donor development systems, software systems. So there's a lot of infrastructure needs that may be created that people weren't thinking about. Also sometimes, and particularly with a merger, people don't realize there's potentially salary adjustments that have to be made. One organization may feel pressure to increase the salaries of other people in the organization to come up to the more common pay scale. So those are some of the common obstacles that we have there. As all of you know, either pursuing a collaboration or a merger, either a full asset merger or a current-parent model, is often similar to dating and getting married. In dating, you need to meet with someone, get an idea about what he or she is like, and over time develop a mutual relationship and wish to pursue that. Organizations are very similar. One of the big differences between the for-profit world also and the non-profit world of mergers is as follows. In the for-profit mergers, there usually is an increased ability to acquire debt and an ability to reduce administrative costs, which we just discussed. In the nonprofit world, other than an occasional line of credit, there is no access to debt capital, so that has a little benefit in here. As we also talked about, that most nonprofits are seriously understaffed administration, so combining two underdeveloped internal structures does not already result in a stronger, albeit more expensive administration. Where it does make sense, obviously, is in the area of program development, and that's where it's more applicable to the for-profit sector here. Let me also, before we take on the questions, let's talk about some of the other myths that are out there about nonprofit mergers. We already discussed one is that there will be automatically reduced administrative cost savings, which is not generally the case. Or that there are just too many nonprofits. Well, I don't know that there's too many, but sometimes there's far too few good ones and ones that can sustain themselves. The other myth is that a merger is of two equal parties. It's actually very rare to have a partner that has equal resources, skills, and reputation. So there may be a power of imbalance that's tilted towards one or the other. One could have a strong board chair compared to the other. How is that? The other obstacle or myth is that a merger or a collaboration will answer all questions. There are many issues that have to be detailed even after things are worked out. And finally, another obviously obstacle or myth is that the merged organization will automatically be stronger than the two pre-merged organizations. Sometimes it's the case and sometimes it is not the case, so it's not automatically assumed. If you are dealing with two weak, struggling organizations and they merge, does not automatically create a much stronger organization at all. Let's now move on to address some of the specific questions that you've asked for previously and address some of the other questions that are on here. And we encourage you at this point, if you haven't already, to submit your questions and Maria will highlight them for me. First question was, if several small agencies are looking to regionalize their services, how do we keep each one feeling empowered and not absorbed? It's a very common issue. Again, it goes back to the sense of identity. One of the things about nonprofits is that both as staff and certainly as boards, people have strong identities with their organizations and they don't want to be lost and absorbed to that. One of the ways of dealing with that is what we just talked about. There's a common parent model where both organizations keep their identity in the community, but begin to handle over time different organizational issues at a different level and consolidate things that the people that you are servicing don't get to see. Another question is, how do we approach a large institution in a way in which we may sell our services in an attractive way when your organization is financially challenged? I think what this questioner is asking about is, if I have an organization that has financial difficulties, how might I sell myself to someone else here? I think one of the questions we always have to ask ourselves is, how would someone benefit that you want to sell this to? What value can you propose to this organization that would make them want to either incorporate you or your services? And sometimes you're not able to. In spite of the challenge we have, there's sometimes when an organization has to make a very difficult decision of actually closing down. How do we address the staff concerns about the impact that a collaboration merger would have on them? It's a very good question, and the best way to answer and address that is honest, open communication. It's a role of leadership. We can be communicating to our staffs that we are looking to build a stronger organization, looking to focus on ways of sustaining our mission, or maintaining our history, and of bringing greater value to our community is the best way we can of addressing those concerns. Next question. We are currently collaborating with a larger organization. Again, and how do we address our fears about being absorbed into mergers? So there seems to be a lot of questions and concerns about being absorbed and losing one's identity here. Again, the best way I think of trying to maintain your identity is in your program services that the community sees to be providing those services at the best level you can, and constantly work to create value. Next question. What is the best time in an organization's life cycle to consider a merger? The best time is as early on as possible. There's never a good time to plan for disaster after the snow hits the ground, and most of us are around this parts of the country are dealing with that the past week or so here. It is much better to be in a position of strength and looking to collaborate, grow, add programs, merge with other organizations when you're in a position of strength than obviously when you are in a position of financial weakness. Obviously, honesty is the best policy, but the best time obviously is be proactive than reactive. One of the questions that came up was, how do we best identify potential partners for a collaboration or a merger? It's a very good question. One of the suggestions is talk to your funders. Who are they funding that may have similar programs? If you're part of a statewide or regional association, talk to them. Do your own competitive analysis. Who are your competitors? Possibility is look at 990s that are the tax returns to see what people's financials are looking like. Let's find out if there are any other questions that people may have asked here at this point in time. Are there any other questions, Maria, that have come up here?
No questions yet.
Okay.
If anybody does have any questions, please go ahead and type them into your chat box, and we'll make sure that we get those questions over to Dennis so that he can address any questions that might have come up during the webinar, and since you had an opportunity to submit them in advance. So we'll go ahead and keep monitoring those for a moment. And wanted to also let you know that while you're thinking about those questions, that we do have another webinar scheduled. In fact, there's a total of 6 once a month through June. The next one is going to be February 13th from 12 to 1 p.m., so a bit of a lunch and learn. And it's going to be entitled Creating an Inspiring Vision for Your Organization and a Strategic Plan to Achieve It. So if that would be of interest to you, you will be given information through email as to how you could register for that particular webinar.
Let me, Maria, so the question did come in here. One of the concerns that those involved in this webinar should know about, or probably do here, is that one of the concerns that sometimes gets in the way of doing the right thing is our own board members. Is perhaps human nature that we have a tremendous particularly members of the boards who've been on longer than others have a great sense of identity with the organization. And the idea of merging or collaboration it sort of runs against sometimes the American culture of competition and succeeding on your own. It's a big challenge for people to have. And I've seen in my own experience where I've worked with many organizations on a range of collaborative programs, facilitating those, identifying partners and making them happen, as well as obviously working through issues of mergers or post-merger issues or the common parent model, is overcoming the obstacles by the board itself here. One of the really difficult issues that comes up in these discussions about mergers particularly is the name of the organization. Very recently, 2 organizations that I'm very familiar with in the behavioral healthcare world, I went through a lot of length in discussing the possibility of merging, particularly with one executive director about to retire. Believe it or not, it was not my client, believe it or not, they just got caught up on the name. They could not feel the giving up their name that they had with the other organization. It became a really obstacle. Let me also bring up this point, the role that I would play with you or people like me is that one of the roles of someone like myself is to facilitate the issue. The sooner an organization brings on a facilitator or consultant, including a legal advisor who specializes particularly with mergers, because there's all different types of mergers where we think it's just the one type of acquisition and going out of business and being the acquiring one, to all the various models of common parents it is much easier to bring them in on the beginning side here. One of the things that I do with my clients is, particularly on the merger side, is look for the strengths of both organizations and how I can help facilitate the development of those strengths with each other and overcome issues that come up that may become an obstacle down the road, but you smooth them out while that's going on. The whole idea is to balance out the needs of different people and try to form a common identity. At the end of the day, we started with the question about, will your strategic decisions, whether you're going to collaborate, whether you're going to merge, whether you're going to have an affiliation, or you're going to have an association or an alliance. The challenge that we all have today in the business is, how do we sustain ourselves? How do we sustain ourselves in a world where many organizations rely almost exclusively or largely on public funding from some source? Federal, state, county, or local funding is declining. And the competition, as everybody is aware, for the philanthropy dollar is fierce. How do we sustain ourselves? So that's kind of why most of these discussions are coming up today that deal with these issues. I believe we've hoped to clarify for you that there is a difference between a collaboration, an affiliation, an alliance, and a merger. And I hope we've also today addressed that there are more than one type of merger, that we often think about just being acquired or being the acquiree. The thing that I would recommend to many organizations that are considering some type of alliance would be to form a common parent model where you can maintain your identity, you maintain your staff and leadership team, you maintain your board, and slowly over time find ways of collaborating, getting to know each other. One of the things that we don't do enough is have small work groups with our board members. It's really good to have just a small group of board members meet with the other board and kind of get to know each other. I think that goes a long way also towards resolving some of the issues here.
Dennis, we did have another question come in, if you could address this. Please, for sure. our guest here. They're asking, how do you deal with with valuation issues on a merger? So valuation in specific.
Right. We're talking about financial valuation. It all goes back to you have to put down the strengths of the organization you're bringing in. So if one organization clearly there's a due diligence process which takes place in a merger. And part of that due diligence process will review both your financial strengths as well as any financial liabilities. As an example, in an organization that I was working with, one organization had a significant amount of debt obligations to bondholders. And another organization did not. And that was more revealed during the due diligence process. So those questions. In terms of evaluation, since usually separate from a for-profit merger where one is acquiring the other and paying the others out in stock or in cash to the shareholders, there is not a financial payoff. But it is important for a financial evaluation to be done of the complete assets as well as liabilities, any unforeseen expenses such as lawsuits or legal obligations that maybe there's anything in the courts. So but I'm hoping I'm going to address the issue, but financial evaluation plays a little bit less of a role in the nonprofit side, depending upon what the goal of the merger is. And oftentimes, but not always the time, that the stronger organization financially may have more say about who's on the board, or who may chair the board, or the CEO. But that would be the best way I would address right now the financial evaluation issue here. One other issue that came up, Maria, is that on a merger, oftentimes organizations try to, if one CEO is going to remain as the CEO, a board chair from the other organization comes in and balances out the new or the old here as well. In summary here, there's a lot of strategic issues that you as nonprofits, whether you're a board member, whether you're a member of the leadership team or staff, or whether you are a consultant, to the nonprofits. There's a lot of challenges out there today. Today was an attempt to try to demystify that and simplify it. One of the challenges that we have is oftentimes complicating things, overcomplicating things, and in the issue of words collaboration and merger, we blend them in together. Just remember that collaboration is the idea of two organizations working on a very specific program idea, working it together. There's no new entity established. Obviously, a merger has the ability to be acquiring one versus the other, or the best example that most people use in the nonprofit sector is forming a common parent model where you can maintain your identity, maintain your control, but begin to share some of the back office operations until you're ready to start talking about program collaboration. Final word in closing is I thank you for joining me today for the first of many webinars this year. Leadership is challenging. Today, obviously, nonprofit organizations need very talented, visionary leadership with a strong business-minded skill set. I am sure that all these issues that you are addressing can be worked out over time. I'd be happy to help you with any of the questions you may have, and I look forward to meeting with you again in the near future. If there's any other questions at this point, I thank you all for participating in today's webinar.
Thank you all, and I will get the slides and the recording out to everyone within the next couple of days. If any additional questions, please feel free to email those questions to Dennis at denniscmiller.com, and you can visit the website for additional information about Dennis and all the services that are provided, as well as all his contact information, including social media. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.